Just a thought. What if all of Earth, like when you look at yeah, it's called the flat Earth map, but it's the Gleason's uh overhead map, right? I forget what they call that. Or AP map. I think they call it an aerial projection. Uh, New standard map of the world on the projection of the modern college. Yeah, practically correct, scientifically and practically correct. That thing. What if we've been looking at this all wrong? What if, like, so we're in a dome, and what if the water levels we have now are way higher than they initially were? So, like, as you lower down the water level and the land mass around you that you know, like, wouldn't the dome get wider? Wouldn't you, if you got below what we know of? Think of like Antarctica and the ice wall as like sediment that's just up against the edges, like when you're cooking in the bubbles in a pot, all lying around the outside. Think of that as just like sediment that's up at the top, and when you drain it, like you would actually find that the dome gets wider as it goes down lower, right? And there's just way more land. And what if at one point there was all that, like way more land, because we were lower in the dome than we are now in the snow globe, right? And the Tower of Babel is what we're living on. Like they when they did that, when they built the Tower of Babel, they were at that lower level, and it wasn't just some structure that we're thinking of like on one of our continents or in some country. Like maybe this was the no. The Tower of Babel had to reach heaven. There's no structure anywhere on Earth that's wide enough at the base that you can imagine building it up and actually reaching the top of the dome. That's not going to happen, right? It'd just be too skinny. It wouldn't work out. But if all the landmass that we know of, and if you go back on like the earlier maps, they all kind of come back together, Pangea or whatever, all the land masses were together at one. If you had them all together at one like that, and you were building a tower out of like the entire landmass, like all those countries, all those continents, when they were together, all of them were part of this Tower of Babel. So it was huge. It covered every country, every continent when they were together, and they grew it really tall. And that's, God breaks it up, right? Spreads them out. So that's how Pangea broke up. It was the Tower of Babel is what caused it. So when he broke that up, it shifted everybody out around, screwed up their languages, right? And then eventually the flood comes along and the sediment and everything. So there was all this brick had been going on for God knows how long. They were building the Tower of Babel, right? But every layer they went up, excuse me, was fully built out. If you can imagine that it was on every continent, covering everything, just a full circle with the widest base you could imagine, right? When they broke that up, or when God did and spread everybody out, and then there was a flood that happens, right? And the sediment that lands, that's how we get raised up. Like I think there's somehow we're up sitting higher in that glass snow globe than we were originally. We're up towards the top more than we were at the beginning, and our land masses are. It's because we're living, I think, on the top of the broken up pieces of the Tower of Babel. And it would make sense because everywhere that you go on every damn continent, at some point everything was brick. And what if that's because the Tower of Babel was a, earth wide at one point in Pangea, like it covered the whole damn thing. And it was all brick. And it went up. And that's why when we go underground, we find all these elaborate tunnels, you know what I mean, that go on for miles. And it's crazy. And people are like, they probably go into the ocean. They probably do. You know what I mean? Like, who knows how tall that tower was when it was broken up? And we're living on the top of it with the sediment that's been landed. And we're going underneath and finding all these tunnels within these past civilizations. And what if we're just actually closer to the Tower of Babel than we think we are? There's just been so much wild stuff that's happened we can't remember. You know what I mean? The stories weren't passed down. Maybe that's from Satan when he was released. It's hard to say, but it definitely seems like there were better times on this earth. But I think that would explain why every country, every continent has a whole brick tunnel catacomb system going on underneath it. For God knows, they're not even mapped out. God knows how many places have them that we haven't even. I think it's underneath everywhere. It would cover everywhere. You know what I mean? Like eventually you'd go down deep enough everywhere and under the ocean. I think the amount of brick that we could find would blow our minds. It would absolutely blow our minds. We wouldn't begin to comprehend how they covered the entirety of all the land masses in brick. Like they weren't even living on land at some point. They were just living on this new brick structure they'd built and were continued to build it up. That was all they were doing. It's just a thought, but that's wild. Anyway.